My name is Adrienne Esposito. I'm the Executive Director of Citizens Campaign for the Environment, which is a 40-year-old environmental and public health protection organization with our headquarters on Long Island. I'm the founder of the Save the Horseshoe Crab Coalition throughout New York State. We come to you today. I'm the first speaker, so let me lay the groundwork. As was stated, the horseshoe crab has roamed the earth for over 400 million years. And we think this species should be allowed to continue its magnificent journey across our planet. But it's going to need our help. As you heard, the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission has stated that the horseshoe crab populations in New York State have been declining for 15 years. Last year's report by that commission said 3 out of 4 surveys in New York determined that the populations dipped below 1998 levels 27 years ago. Management to recover the species, or at least maintain the species, is not working. You may be aware that New Jersey banned the harvest of horseshoe crab takings in 2008. Connecticut banned the harvesting in 2023. You would think that banning the harvest from the surrounding states would improve New York's populations, and sadly, that has not been the result. My question to you is, we don't act now, when? What does it take for New York State to say a population is crashing and we need to act? Thank you for passing the Horseshoe Crab Protection Act bill, and thank you for championing it and sponsoring it, Assemblywoman Glick, and to the Senate also, who passed that bill. Tragically, as was stated, the bill was vetoed. The governor's veto message I do want to talk about was interesting. It said, and I'm quoting, "While the bill is well-intentioned, the management of marine species is better left to the experts at DEC." We're not here to point fingers or to blame DEC. In fact, we believe DEC has tried to protect the species. The Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission has said New York can take up to 300,000. DEC said, no, we're going to cut that in half and make the take limit 150,000. DEC closed the take during the full moon cycle when the species comes up on land to mate and spawn and lay eggs. That was a good move. We heard yesterday testimony from the acting DEC commissioner, Sean Mahar, when asked by Assemblywoman Glick, do you think enforcement is an issue because you may not have enough enforcement personnel? He said no. Quote, "Our enforcement is out there. We're out there particularly through the full moon." He also said, quote, "We know where the horseshoe crab hotspots are, and we're enforcing the regulation." So we don't think it's enforcement. It leaves us with only one cause for the decline, and that's the policy. So we must change the policy. It's curious to me that the governor only wants to rely on scientists from DEC. We sent her a letter with dozens of scientists who signed it. Renowned scientists who specialize in horseshoe crab management. People like Will Hyam, who's a wildlife biologist with the Center for Biological Diversity, specializes in the marine environment. You have the esteemed Dr. Larry Niles, who will be here testifying, specializes in horseshoe crabs and marine biology. We had Dr. Carl Safina sign the letter, world-renowned scientist, published author, New York Times bestseller list, founder of the Safina Institute, said we need a ban. And then, as was mentioned, one of the most consequential scientists of my generation, Dr. Jane Goodall, penned a personal letter to the governor saying we need this ban. Well, I think we should listen to these scientists. They're saying this because of their concern about the issue and the species. It sounded to me a little bit like this veto was driven as a mechanism to protect the ego of the DEC and not as a mechanism to protect the species. And that's the wrong motivation. I want to speak to you also, my last comment, because some people, we have lots of experts here on the biology, on Erin from Audubon is going to talk about shoreline birds and the impact of horseshoe crabs and the relationship between those species. I want to talk to you about the relationship between the public and horseshoe crabs. And if you're not from Long Island, you may not know this. But horseshoe crabs are to Long Islanders what the manatee are to Florida. I know that sounds crazy. This horseshoe crab is ugly, okay? They are ancient species. They're not cuddly, and they're not fuzzy. But they are lovable. And on Long Island, we grow up, as I did, with 1 foot in the water and 1 foot in the land. And you learn to connect and respect nature. And it is a ritual on Long Island that our families grow up with, that during the full moon in May and June, you get your flashlight, you grab your family and friends, and you go down as the sun is setting to the beach, and you watch the ancient ritual of the migration of the horseshoe crabs crawling out of the water for a little mating going on the beach. And it's a special moment because it's nature. It connects us to nature. And we hear it all the time at our office, and I know you have other people who will speak to this, but it's harder and harder to observe that, to watch it, because the species is declining. When our children go to the local aquariums, they learn about horseshoe crabs. When they go for outdoor adventures and we send them to camp, they learn about horseshoe crabs. They learn that horseshoe crabs have 10 eyes and one of them is on the tail. They learn horseshoe crabs have blue blood. They learn that this species is unique and special. And we should be protecting what's unique and special. We don't want to hurt the commercial fishermen. We never want to do that. But just because we've done something for 100 years doesn't mean we should continue to do the same practice. The 2 reasons identified for the decrease in the population of horseshoe crabs is habitat loss and overharvesting. Maybe we could put back some of the beach that we took, unlikely, but we can change the policy for overharvesting. And that's what we need you to do. I ask you again, if we don't act now, when? What would be the trigger point for you to act if it's not 3 decades of a decline of the species population? And actually, in the words of Dr. Goodall, it's easier for a species to recover when there's a minimum population left than it is when there's hardly any at all. She said it much more eloquently. But the point is that we can get to the point of no return. Horseshoe crabs take 9 years to mature. That's one of the reasons that it's very hard for that species to recover. We need to act now, we need to act decisively, and we need your help. Thank you so much for holding this hearing, and thank you so much for the opportunity to comment this morning.